Anyways, lastly, I want to point out something else that's interesting. Much of what the public was told about the Stanford experiment was a lie, okay? There were accusations of bad faith acting, intentional acting, because they wanted to say that they got a specific response from having done this experiment. And you will recall I brought up this guy, David Eshelman, who was also known as the John Wayne of the experiment. And he pretends like, oh, I had no idea I was going to be a guard. But then on day 2, I just became more brutal and I liked it. And it was sadistic. And this was like, I just got into it. He's very over the top and comes across like an actor. I'll let you watch that clip again real quickly.
Each day I said, well, what can we do to ramp up what we did yesterday? How can we build on that?
Why did you want to ramp things up?
2 reasons, I think. One was because I really believed I was helping the researchers with some better understanding of human behavior. On the other hand, it was personally interesting to me. You know, I cannot say that I, did not enjoy what I was doing. Maybe, having so much power over these poor defenseless prisoners, maybe, you kind of get off on that a little bit.
So to be clear, he was an actor. He was pursuing a degree in acting, and he is, in fact, a trained actor. And while the public was told that these participants also didn't know each other, we just put in an ad of the newspaper and we got a response, and then we went through some assessment and picked the ones that we thought would be best suited. They actually did know each other. And while David Eshelman runs around and gets all the attention and talks about how he loved it and got into this role very quickly, he knew another participant who, for whatever reason, was kind of neglected. Movies were made about this experiment, and no one wanted to speak to John Marks, who was one of the individuals that was a part of this experiment. And he was saying that this experiment that we were involved in, what the public knows, they were lied to. It's fraudulent. Now, how do I know that he says that? Well, because I found a Reddit thread. He did an AMA on Reddit, okay? An AMA is Ask Me Anything. Now, the first thing you're going to think is, Candace, this is Reddit. We don't know if that's him. Wrong. We know it's him, because to prove that it's him, he provides a link of him. He provides his California driver's license, which says that he's in Sausalito, California. He also held up a sign, said prison guard 3615, and goes, you guys can see this is actually me. And then just to be triply sure rather, I actually did a side-by-side comparison of his face. I found his high school photo, because I'm a psycho, in a yearbook, and I was able to determine, because he makes it clear, that it's the same individual. So this was legit. It was John Mark. And what he says in this Reddit AMA from 11 years ago, the first thing that he wants people to know is that the bad guard from the night shift, that being David Eshelman, was a high school friend of mine, he writes. Unfortunately, the experiment and the way his play acting was interpreted as real tainted the results and caused me to not feel as friendly toward him anymore after that. So they knew each other, they were friends. Occasionally, he goes on, we meet at reunions, and at one occasion, he apologized for his behavior. Then he goes on and he writes, and this gets really interesting, the prisoner who was removed from the experiment for a breakdown was the younger brother of one of my friends. Okay, so now we realize that 3 of them potentially knew each other. And even more, because he writes, but I never had any subsequent contact with him. When he was removed, he was replaced by a new prisoner who was, in fact, a grad student who was working with Philip Zimbardo, that's the guy who ran the entire experiment, who was placed as a mole to find out what the student prisoners were up to. This new prisoner / grad student was also an acquaintance of mine. So while I didn't out him, and I'm sure none of us were supposed to know that he was a part of the research team, nor was his background ever published to my knowledge, I knew who he was. Okay, because that becomes very interesting. So he's saying that, which we learn in terms of what was publicized, some people quit the experiment. Those people have said that they were acting. One of the individuals said they were acting. And he's now saying that there was this prisoner swap, which wasn't reported, where a graduate student then went in and became a prisoner, but he was really a mole that was working under Philip Zimbardo. Now, that part is interesting because many of you emailed us about prisoner number 2093, thinking that that prisoner in the Stanford prison experiment looked a lot like Jean-Michel Trogno. But again, we didn't think that was possible because in that side profile shot, the JMT lookalike is clearly not a prisoner. Like he's like writing notes. He's not in the right prison garb. And then suddenly there is a lot of gray images where it looks like it could be JMT. But then in other images throughout, that prisoner looks like a totally different person. Like he's got long blonde hair here. And I'm going, why do I feel like this is two different people? Like sometimes he's got weight on him and sometimes he doesn't. So I just kind of put it out of my mind. The appearance, just like the change in the appearance seems strange. But now this guy is saying like, no, they changed around who the prisoners were, that they sent in a mole. And who knows what happened because Zimbardo has essentially locked down the files. A lot of you guys were like, oh, the names of them, we found the names here of the people that were involved in the experiment. No, he says in his book that he used different names to protect their identities. And he has never actually released the full list of the individuals, the 24 students who we were told didn't know each other that were involved in this experiment. And so I don't know. I don't know what to think here, but I am now very interested. There's a lot of things that's happening now. To be clear, it could be nothing. It could be nothing. As we saw during the Kamala Chronicles, as we began looking into things, sometimes, you want something to fit and it could fit and then you're wrong. And so if it's wrong and we get more information, we'll be the first ones to let you know, right? We wish we could just ask these questions and shut things down by going to Brigitte and Emmanuel, but they don't want to answer any questions. I want to ask Brigitte, hey, by the way, you can be the first one to shut this down. Be like, hey, here's the dates that I was in the United States. Here it is. Here's me pictured with my family. I assume you took some pictures while you were in your youth in the United States. Is that a fair assumption that like when you go on a trip, you might take some photos if you spent that much time in your youth? Brigitte could shut this down. We have never been in the business of trying to present a story that's not truthful. It doesn't help me. It doesn't help people that are at home. But I am getting increasingly interested because you have to wonder what the hell warrants a response like this from a sitting president in a foreign country. What the hell warrants a response from a sitting president of this country? Why did Trump call me so quickly? Like something I didn't think about until I was reflecting upon it, how quick that phone call came in right after Emmanuel Macron left. Is there something that we accidentally, like I always do, stumbled upon just because I was interested? Did I accidentally stumble upon something that could potentially implicate the United States in some way? What was Brigitte doing? Like actually, what was Brigitte doing in the United States throughout her youth? The good thing is that first and foremost, you guys can email us and we will investigate everything. We will actually include links to all of this. Skylar, if you want to make a note, the Reddit AMA, we will include a link to that. Also, we will include a link so that you can see that on the Department of Justice website. If you are in Canada, please start looking through shipping records and see if you can find a Jean-Marie. Anybody with the last name Trogno, that would also be helpful. Everywhere you are in the world. Also, in that lawsuit, it said that the ship deviated. That was one of the reasons they were suing and went off course. They say that the ship stopped in Antwerp. So yeah, tons of people that all over that can get involved and just see what you can find on ship manifest. If you can find that last name, and maybe you're going, actually, Candace, I know the crew member, Jean-Marie Trogno, and I can shut this down immediately for you. Here is me and my buddy. We worked on that ship together and we've got photos because people take photos growing up, working together. That would be normal. Please send it to us. We want to know. We are dying to know. This is truly the most exciting lead, I think, is this Jean-Marie Trogno. I do think that that individual has to at least be in the family of Brigitte Macron. Is it the dad? The dad would have been alive during that time, maybe. But they tell us nothing. So we have to investigate this stuff ourselves. Also, something else I want to add here that I found to be interesting. We found Jonathan Mark, the Reddit poster, that he graduated from Stanford 4 years later. He is on the Stanford alumni directory from that exact same place. I forgot what it was called, like Salsa something, California. It's listed that he graduates then 4 years later. So that's another question mark. Again, we were told it's supposed to be all these people around. I don't know what's happening, but as we take this week off, we're going to start going through and seeing what it is that we can learn about every individual that was involved in this experiment, because I've already discovered that a few of them spoke French. I don't know what the chances are that you round up random people in America, graduate students, and they're French. They can also speak French. That's of interest to me. But we could be trying to make it fit, We could be trying to make it fit. and maybe it doesn't. So you guys will have to let us know. Don't go away, because now I have to tell you something about White Lotus. And I don't think I never thought that I would say this on the show. But people of China, I need your help. People of China who actually can't watch YouTube, but I know you guys are watching this series somehow because of the comments. I need your help in understanding something that happened historically in China. We'll get to that in a second. First, I want to tell you guys about Preborn, because every heartbeat tells a story. And at Preborn, they give moms in crisis a chance to hear that heartbeat for free. And that's exactly why I partner with Preborn. Preborn isn't out to judge women. They're making motherhood possible. They provide free ultrasounds. They share the gospel of Jesus Christ. And most importantly, they stay after the baby is born with real practical support by giving expecting mothers diapers, baby clothes, and even housing and financial help for up to 2 years after the baby is born, because that's what true Christ-centered compassion looks like. And here's how you can be a part of that. For just $28, you can give a mom a free ultrasound, one chance to see her baby. And when she does, she is twice as likely to choose life. Preborn is on a mission to save 70,000 babies this year. So don't just say that you're pro-life. You can actually live that now. To donate, just call 1-855-601-2229, or you can head to preborn.com/Candace. Again, that's preborn.com/Candace. Also, I want to tell you guys about Dose, because mourning in my house is no joke. I've got 4 kids, a million things to do, prepping a show. Somehow I still try to show up as my best self. That's why I like to start my day with Dose. Dose is a powerful all-in-one wellness shot that helps support gut health, immunity, and energy, and all the stuff that really matters when you don't have time to slow down. And let's be honest, when you've got a big and busy family, slowing down is not an option. It takes me literally 5 seconds in the morning, and I feel the difference all day long. Their bestseller is Dose for Your Liver, which was formulated to cleanse your liver of unwanted elements, also to aid digestion and to maintain your body's filter. Dose's clinical results showed lowering liver enzyme levels by 50% in most of their participants. 1 shot of Dose for Your Liver is equivalent to 17 shots of turmeric juice. Dose is gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, and it's vegan. So stick with Dose, and you'll feel the incredible benefits over time, which are more energy. You'll feel that you have better digestion. It will reduce bloating. You'll have healthier liver enzyme function, reduction in brain fog as well, and better sleep. Right now, you will save 30% off on your first month subscription by going to dosedaily.co/Candace, or by entering code Candace at checkout. That's dosedaily.co/Candace, or by using code Candace for 30% off your first month subscription. Okay, now to the second part. China, I need your help, okay? Asia, I need your help. Actually, because India is kind of involved in this too. Very preliminary research that I'm talking about. While we were on break, there is a lot of things that we have to look into. But one of the themes that we have talked about on the show, which is interesting, is how culture seems to be pushing upon us this idea that incest can be sexy. Most recently, I was referring to the Kardashian sisters. I actually have been screaming about this for years, even back when I was on the Daily Wire, going, hey guys, you know how they're selling perfume, but like Kylie and her sisters are all half naked next to each other, making sexy faces? Yet that is them trying to kind of seed the idea to us that incest can be okay, and it's not okay. Similarly, Heidi Klum, her daughter just turned 18. They did this ad where they were like half naked. I don't remember what, I think they might have been selling lingerie. That, if my sister even came within 20 feet of me in a bikini, I would tackle her, okay? You're supposed to be like, bleh, you know? But they're trying to be like, and we're enticing and sexy, like buy the product. That's weird. That is very strange. Well, let me tell you something. A few of you actually emailed us and said, Candace, further to that point, I don't know if you watch White Lotus. I watched the first 2 seasons. It's an HBO series, but there was randomly there was certainly outrage about it. There was randomly, they just sort of threw in this incest theme. I think the story goes that, and Skylar, tell me in my ear that 2 brothers, or you can you speak, Skylar? I don't know if you can speak in there. Okay, apparently it was two guys. Okay, so apparently there was a kissing scene with 2 brothers that took place on this smash hit series. And everyone was just like, why? Why is this necessary? Why do we need gay incest in this moment for the show to be good? And the storyline is about elites, and they're kind of getting away with a lot of stuff. And the hotel is named the White Lotus Hotel. Nobody really knew why this was named the White Lotus Hotel, or at least I didn't know. I knew nothing about that term White Lotus at all. I thought it was just like maybe a pretty flower. I don't know, maybe some sort of a bug. I had no idea. Well, you're not going to believe this. We received another email and somebody gave me a tip and said, hey, Candace, I'm trying to access this file, but I am getting the last name Trogno and I can't, but when I click it, I can't open it. And what I realized when I took a look at that was the individual was trying to access a book, and it required that that person paid $33 to be able to access why Trogno was being mentioned in the context of China in the 18th century. Now, the 18th century is a pretty big century, right? Because the French Revolution happens in 1789. And by and large, the French Revolution was a sexual revolution, okay? And in this book, I'm actually going to read it to you guys. Give me a second because I downloaded it. It's very expensive, and I'm going to tell you what it tells us. It tells us that, and I'm recapping here, but essentially there was in China a rebellion that took place, and a bunch of Jesuits leading up to this rebellion, not a bunch of Jesuits, a handful of Jesuits, under the guise of saying that we're here on a Catholic mission, came in to China, one of their names being Father Trogno. I kid you not. The full name is Father Francois Theodore Trogno. Came in to China. And then it tells us very quickly in this book that the Catholics were accused of being White Lotus members. And I'm like, okay, that is interesting. What is White Lotus? And then I learned that there's this big rebellion that took place in China. It was called the White Lotus Rebellion. And in my preliminary research, it tells me that aspects of this, there were accusations that were thrown of sexual impropriety that was taking place. I don't know if it had something to do with tantric sex rituals. It's weird. It is weird, okay, that somehow this was taking place. And then we learned that a Father Trogno, and then when I researched, of course, he's from the Picardy region of France, that a Father Trogno was there. So I'm going to read you directly from that book. The book is called This Suffering is My Joy. And they don't even put the full name of Father Trogno. I actually had to look up Father Trogno after this book. But it tells us that the suspicions of Catholics being linked to the White Lotus sect led to a persecution in 1747 in which Martiliat, I'm going to spell that for you guys, Martiliat, and other Europeans were forced to leave Sichuan for Macau. Okay, so they were French missionaries, and they said that they somehow got blamed, said that they were being accused of being a part of the White Lotus sect, but it tells us on the next page that under Moulinet, who was a Jesuit missionary that went into China, he then brought in 3 other Lazarists, and their names were Fathers Gandin, Father Monet, and Father Trogno. That they were sent from France, and they arrived in China at the end of 1733. And then they get accused. So 1733, they are in France. They enter into France, this Father Trogno. And then by 1747, they're being linked to the White Lotus sect. So I will ask you, tell me more about the White Lotus sect. If you live in China, tell me the stuff that I can't find, because there does seem to be a wall between what happens in the East and what happens here. What aspects of it were considered sexual perversion? They believe that, I guess, some rituals were taking place. Please tell me more about that. I am fascinated by that period in general, like I said, not only because the French Revolution happens, but because another hit dog that hollered in all of this was when I talked about Jacob Frank. When I talked about this Frankist movement that took place at this same time. They were individuals it was a cult of military. They believed in constantly changing their names. And Jacob Frank's cousin was the person behind the French Revolution. They mass converted into the Catholic Church because they practice apostasy. So the best way to bring down your enemies is from within. So to pretend that you're pious, that you're Catholic, and then to crush the church from the inside. These are all available facts. You can go look this up. Jacob Frank's cousin went by 3 different names, by the way, Austria. If you want to look into the von Schonfeld family, he went by Moses de Bruschka, which was his real name. What was his name during the French Revolution? Can you look that up? Look up Moses de Bruschka. Not that that's the easiest thing to spell, but I'm going to need to know before we I need to figure this out because I want to know what his 3 names were so people can kind of look into this individual. But yeah. And then he went in there into Strasbourg. He starts publicizing because they know that like it's always been like a press thing. Like we have to control the press and fomenting unrest. And so now we're learning that in this exact same period, people are accused of doing stuff in China. I need to know what was going on. Like what, if anything, was going on. Here we are, Moses Dabrowska. And he tells us that he was a writer. They're all writers, poet, and also a revolutionary. He was the first cousin of Jacob Frank, like I said, who claimed to be the Jewish Messiah. I also heard that during that White Lotus Rebellion, that person who eventually led that rebellion proclaimed that he was a Messiah. If I'm correct, I very little stuff that I can find on it. Again, this is the beginning of research, but it tells us that he converted from Judaism to the Catholic faith, and he took on the name Franz Thomas Schonfeld, right? So he went by Franz Thomas Schonfeld. He also, in Vienna, went by Franz Thomas Elder von Schonfeld. And then he went by Moses Dabrowska. And yeah, this guy, Ephraim Joseph Hirschfeld. Hirschfeld was the last name. They were Freemasons at the end of the day. They were the main activists of the Masonic Lodge. And they were active in Germany. They were active in Austria between 1783 and 1790. And then obviously we know the French Revolution happens at that time. So lot to process there. I need to know more about what were the sexual perversions that they were accused of in this White Lotus sect, if anything. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know anything right now. That's the point. That's why we go to you guys, because we get to just activate a bunch of investigators. Poor Elysee Palace staying up late right now watching this. I think they really did believe that I was working with like Russian people, the Russian government, as well as the far right politicians in various countries. And truly, when we go through this court process, they're going to realize it's just moms and dads that are concerned about what's happening in the world right now, all over the world, that are sending information, that are doing due diligence, that know something because they were sailors or they were captains or they have access because they know how to research an archive center faster than I do. They don't know how to respond to truth. They don't recognize it. They don't recognize genuine interest because they've been so ingenuine their entire lives, right? When your entire life becomes a carefully woven lie, you do feel attacked when you see something that is truth, that is rising organically. You don't even understand something that can be grown organically because your entire life is inorganic. That's exactly what is happening right now at the Elysee Palace. And so everybody, tons of themes that we've covered today, but it's going to take all of us. So please, please, please email tips@CandaceOwens.com with whatever you can find. Again, making it clear to you guys, some of you guys are sending me names of people that are in the experiment. He was very clear that he used pseudonyms. So you're going to say prisoner 2093, Tom Williams. That person has not actually ever been identified. And as we now know, there were prisoners that were switching. So we are looking to find the real names. If you were in this experiment, maybe John Mark, you'd like to speak. I don't know if you're still alive. I'll look into that. It's all a part of our research. We're exploring, as I said at the top of the show, every available lead, because now we need to finally get to the truth of what happened to Jean-Michel Trogno.